Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Sasha Golding, and I own Silver Frame Photo and Video here in Dauphin. We digitize a lot of old family memories and community history, photos and videos.
Yeah. So why do you do this work?
I have just always really enjoyed knowing that there's a lot of stories behind photos and videos from the past. Particularly the much older photos and videos that are, 100 years ago, for example. There's always a story, and working with families or community organizations that have that photographic and video history is just, it's really enjoyable.
Do you think your work helps you grow closer to the community?
Yes, definitely. Most people that come in looking for advice or wanting to digitize or scan some of their old photos or films, they might just think, oh, it's just our old family photos, but there's often a lot of community history, whether it's parades or, photos and old videos from the Ag Fair, or some of the Indigenous organizations have old photos, and all of that is part of community history. So yeah, definitely.
What are the pros and cons of this being your job?
The pros are there's so many of them. Helping people preserve by digitizing and scanning their photos and films, helping them preserve their family history for the future generations, which is really important. Definitely, providing people a safe backup of their old videos, their old photos. Sometimes it's photos that are 100 years old negatives or slides, because if something ever happens to the originals, that history is lost. Whereas if they've been saved, digitized, backed up, if something were to happen, they can reproduce those and still have that history. And then I can't think of a lot of cons other than it's really easy when working with families or organizations. It's really easy to get caught up in looking at all the details in the photos and videos, and not that that's a con, but it can take some time, and you have to kind of be aware of not digging too far in while you're doing the work, and then enjoy that later.
Yeah. Do you have any inspirations for why you've decided to do this as your career?
I think it's a good question. I just know that it's really important for families and organizations in the community to safeguard what they have already spent the time taking photos of and taking videos of. Whoever took those photos and videos did it for a reason in the moment. It was either a family celebration or a community celebration, or somebody wanted to capture that moment for a reason. And so, a lot of folks say, we've got a closet or a shelf full of albums or old slides in a box. For me, the inspiring part or the joyful part is making them in a more modern format by digitizing them so that they can actually enjoy them and share them with family again.
Are there any unique aspects about doing what you do in Dauphin?
Yes, I would say definitely. Because we're a smaller rural community, I work really closely with anyone that comes in. So it's not like a big box store or a service where people mail away their photos and videos to be digitized. Here, everything is done in the shop, right on Main Street. I work really closely with anybody that comes in with, old family films, negative slides, photos, whatever it is. And so there's a lot of direct contact. There's a lot of trust, for sure, because a lot of people are bringing in really special but really very personal parts of their family history. Yeah. And so I think what's unique about that is that it's a very small business. There's a lot of advice. There's a lot of conversation that happens around, what do you want your collection of family history to look like when you're done? You don't really get that when you go to a bigger center. And I wouldn't be as directly involved with clients if it were anywhere else. Here, I really enjoy that people can come in, take time, a lot of times they'll talk about some of the memories in their albums, or they'll talk about, you know, the memories from an old Super 8 film from the 50s and a parade that they were in Dauphin or something like that. So so I think that's really unique because there's just a lot of conversation and a lot of relationship building with everybody that comes in. I don't think you'd get that in a bigger center, so I really appreciate that.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, well, I think I would just really encourage, you know, thinking about the museum, for example, I would really encourage people to think, you know, sometimes people say, oh, nobody would want those photos, you know, that was 30 years ago, no one remembers, you know, we don't even need to keep them. But there is a lot of community history in a lot of people's photos and videos. So even if it's, I don't know, footage or photos of some community celebration or a fair 30 years ago, I always encourage clients, don't toss those, donate them to the museum if you're not sure. Yes, I'm sure the museum would want them. And, you know, there's a fair number of people that come in and say, oh, these photos are 100 years old. We're not sure who's in them anymore. There's actually a lot of help and a lot of ways we can identify.
Yeah.
And even if you or your family isn't sure if you want to keep them, somebody in the community, whether it's the museum or the city, somebody will. So I always, you know, just encourage people to remember that every photo is important for some reason or another.
And last but not least, is there anything you would like to advertise while you're here or talk about?
Not really. You know, I mean, if I am definitely not, you know, what I would call a salesperson, but I really enjoy giving advice to people and just answering questions. I think the biggest part of my business is being able to give people information about where to start if they have old family photos or negatives or films. Sometimes people just don't know where to start and they don't know what their options are. You know, there's a lot of technology now that can make it so easy to enjoy the photos and videos on your TV or your iPad, or be able to share it with family really easily. So, you know, whether or not I end up doing the work, I just really enjoy telling people what their options are, and then we can make a plan. It's different for every client. So, you know, if people ever wanted to reach out, they can certainly jump online, Instagram, Facebook, website, Silver Frame Photo and Video. But otherwise, yeah, I just really appreciate the chance to come out and see the museum again. It's been a while, and yeah, I think it's really great that you're doing these interviews this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.